Baby, you understand me now. If sometimes you see that I'm...
Hey, it's Spivey. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be discussing childhood trauma. I decided that I wanted to discuss this because I'm in a place in my life where I have been rediscovering some things, I suppose, and I think that adults can benefit from talking about childhood trauma. Childhoods are the foundation of the type of relationships that we will have later on in life, how we operate inside of those types of relationships, our attachment style, our detachment style once those relationships are done. This is also a foundation of how we bond with people in general. Childhood trauma is an experience of an event that is emotionally painful or distressful. These type of situations are usually hard to recover from because it usually has mental and physical effects on your body. There was a study done where 60% of U.S. adults reported experiencing at least one traumatic event before the age of 5, and this could be social trauma or this can be due to family trauma. There are multiple forms of trauma, but I am only going to go through a few today. The first one I'm going to discuss is emotional trauma. Emotional trauma is psychological trauma that usually shatters a child's sense of security and trust. An example of emotional trauma would be something like emotional abandonment. This is usually expressed by ignoring the child, yelling, or humiliating the child. A lot of times we will see this in the form of a child's expression being frowned upon. This basically teaches a child that his or her feelings are invalid, and it teaches them to suppress their emotions, which suppressing your emotions is not the best thing to do, because what happens is you begin to lose touch with who you are. Our emotional state, our emotional stability has a lot to do with who we are as individuals, just as well as our looks. So once you begin to suppress this and not live in its truth, you then begin to sort of chip away at your authentic self. Suppression of emotions can also lead to outbursts. Usually it looks like anger or agitation. This type of adult usually grows up to become a people pleaser. Basically, this person holds others' emotional and physical needs above oneself. So in return, basically you're ignoring your own emotional and physical needs in order to cater to someone else, to make sure they feel comfortable around you, to make sure they love you, to make sure they accept you. And you're normally not getting the same treatment in return. This type of person just usually neglects him or herself. You're putting out the energy that you are less important than all these other people that you have to prove something to. This type of child also blends in with the poor communicator. Now, the poor communicator is the person, I'm pretty sure we all know somebody like this, if it's not us. Basically, this is the person who doesn't really say what they need to say. They kind of just beat around the bush about certain subjects. They may operate as if you're a mind reader instead of just being upfront about how they feel about certain situations. So this person doesn't understand how to articulate his or her emotions. Physical trauma. Physical trauma is physical force against another person, and in this case it would be a child. Examples of this would be physical punishment. I would constitute physical punishment as hitting and whipping. I know a lot of people will argue this point to me because they will say whippings made them a better kid. But on the flip side, because this is two-faced coin, Physical punishment can definitely have an adverse effect, and this could be making the child more aggressive or hostile. This type of treatment also increases a child's risk of being involved in criminal acts. This also increases a child's chance of being disruptive in school environments, can also increase a child's chance of bullying. With the bullying, the child usually displaces his or her anger that they have for the adult onto his or her peers. I know we all know of students who were very disruptive. 9 times out of 10, this was the adverse effect of physical trauma. This lowers a child's academic performance as well. And sometimes this is usually because they will have an issue concentrating, or they will simply just be acting out for attention. This can also lower a child's ability to be able to reason with people. When they have gotten physical punishment, the adult did not appropriately explain why this is the type of punishment that you're getting. So this enables or handicaps a child's ability to be able to tell right from wrong. Usually the child who experiences physical punishment grows up to become the adult who literally has to punish his or her loved ones for every single mistake they make. They usually struggle with forgiveness with other people, and they usually have a very hard time forgiving themselves as well. They are usually hard on others because they are extremely hard on themselves. These are the type of people that you will see who have to cut people off for every little thing that they do. Next is sexual abuse. This is usually a sexual act against a child with or without force. Examples of this would be performing a sexual act on a child or making a child perform a sexual act. Usually this is someone who's older than the victim. A lot of times you will get victims who were absolutely confused about what was going on. When I spoke to people, because I did my personal poll for this video, I had a lot of people surprise me and say sexual abuse was something that they endured as a child. But what I did discover is it did make sex embedded into their livelihoods. So they would find a sense of worth inside of sex. It will always be attached to sex. You would use sex as a way to gain love, to gain acceptance, because you now believe that this is the way to get love from someone, to be accepted from someone. This is all manipulation. Both men and women stated that being sexually abused as a child made them very promiscuous as adults. The child who was sexually abused grows up to be the adult who has multiple sex partners. Now, this does not apply for everyone, but it does apply for a good portion. Neglect. Neglect is when the physical or emotional needs of the child are uncared for or unmet. This is an extension of both emotional and physical trauma. Examples can be malnutrition, being ignored or isolated. This can definitely have a major effect on how a child bonds with others. Some will be too open and too easily bonded to others, and this could be because they're trying to fill the void of having a missing parent in the picture, or their emotional needs were not filled as a child, so they seek that out in other people. Abandonment and neglect definitely leads to trust issues. This can also lead to a willingness to stay in unhealthy relationships because the detachment style is so painful due to neglect. One thing I do struggle with is neglect for sure. Out of all of the traumas, I definitely relate to this one the most. And for me, it's a little bit more emotional than it is the physical effects of neglect. Through a situation that I recently went through, I realized that being ignored is such a trigger for me. And this is something that I should have known for a long time, because I would react certain ways whenever I was being ignored. But it took me to grow to a certain point for me to fully understand that this is a trigger for me and be able to touch on why. This reminds me of being invalidated. It sends me to a place. It's gonna sound crazy because I am opinionated, but in regards to my feelings, things that are very near and dear to my heart, I am extremely sensitive about that stuff. So when I open up to you and I feel like you're brushing me off, or I feel like you're ignoring me, it literally just sends me through, because you're triggering a part of me that I have not healed yet. But now that I understand where that comes from, I have been able to work on my healing. My suppression of emotions would definitely look like outbursts of anger. The older I've gotten, the more I've realized, I have to deal with this. I have to accept this. That way I will be able to work through whatever I'm feeling and whatever I'm experiencing. Other examples of trauma, this would include drug usage, mental illness, abuse against another in the home, the death of the family, parental separation, traumatic experiences to a child. It would definitely impact how they progress as adults. Common reactions to trauma is pushing it away, not wanting to bother with it, not wanting to talk about it at all, completely ignore it. It does not allow any type of healing to occur. Another reaction to trauma might be detachment from others, not really being concerned with other people, just kind of in your own little world doing your own type of thing. I've already discussed this one, but easily agitated or upset. The problem with untreated trauma is it not only causes mental effects on us, but it also affects us physically. Trauma often creates stress. These stressors are related to heart disease, obesity, early deaths. This is also rooted in mental illness, such as bipolar disorder, disassociation disorders, where you get stressed to the point where you mentally check out of situations, deep depressions, PTSD, and anxiety disorders. Out of all of these, I have never spoken about this, but I definitely have anxiety issues. I've always known that I have had these issues, but I never knew that it was on the spectrum that it is until I got in situations where I didn't act like I should have, or like I would have liked. Anything that triggers you is showing you where you need to heal. It's showing you exactly where the pain is. So once you're triggered, accept what it is. Examine how you feel about the traumatic event. Really own those feelings. Really feel them for all that they are. No shortcuts. Receive the lesson that the trauma is offering you. One of my favorites, which is what I'm doing right now, is sharing it. Once you share your experiences, it's like opening up that wound, allowing that wound to have fresh air, allowing that wound to heal itself. I believe that through sharing, not only can we heal with each other, but we can also connect and relate with one another. That would definitely help how we see and treat each other. Last but not least, letting it go. The best one. You have to absolutely let it go. The more you harbor on it, the more you hold on to it, the more it controls you. So things that you can definitely do to help with sorting through your childhood trauma and figuring out plans to not let it negatively affect you in the long run. Therapy, and talk to someone about it. Even talking it out to people that you know. Talking it out to the people that hurt you if you're willing to do that. Another easy way is just to write a letter. And if you want to send it to them, then you can send it to them. And if not, you can keep it to yourself and do whatever you like. In conclusion, I will say that we cannot fully love ourselves if we hate the experiences that created us. We must accept what was and work toward healing and embracing the new experiences that we have waiting for us.
Don't let me be misunderstood. I try so hard, so please don't let me be